Alright everyone, so welcome to a beautiful spring morning, southeast Pennsylvania. It's 53 degrees, a few clouds in the sky, sunny. Oh, wait a minute. It's actually the middle of February in Pennsylvania, and there's going to be snow tonight. Yeah, this is my life. I've grown up in Pennsylvania my whole life, and I've come to expect the unexpected. 50 degrees one day, 28 degrees the next day with some snow on the ground. That's a normal February. Anyway, a day like this allows me to get the M4 out, and I have not had a chance to do a video on this previously. And so it's a good day to have a midwinter stretch of the legs on the old M4. This car is a bit, I'm not sure how to feel about this car. It's great in a lot of ways. It's not quite right for me in a lot of ways. It's interesting when I drive this back to back with the Cayman. This thing feels like a boat in comparison to the Cayman. It is obviously bigger. It's 2+2. It's got a rear seat here, and you know, it's share the chassis with the M3. This is the F82 M4. It's 2015. It's got just over 41,000 miles on it. It was purchased in 2016 as a CPO. So this car, I find hard to get comfortable in. I do like that the bolsters inflate and they snug up really well. But at the same time, the seat bottom, it feels like a park bench. It does have thigh bolstering, but it doesn't feel very padded on the bottom. And when I commute to work with it, by the time I get to work, my butt's kind of getting sore. And I can't imagine doing long road trips in this car for that reason. Now, granted, if you drive it every day, you would get used to it, but I find that overall the seats in the Cayman are much more comfortable. I also find the positioning weird. The steering wheel's pretty thick actually, which is somewhat normal for M cars, but just the seating position, I really just can't get comfortable in it. To fully depress the clutch, I have to be a certain closeness to the dashboard, but I don't like having the steering wheel all the way forward, and I don't know, when I rest my elbows on the armrest, I just kind of feel like I'm spread out, and I've learned that I like a smaller car than this, but I am a small frame, so you have to take that into account. This car's got a lot of features on it. It's got lane keep assist, blind spot monitoring, head-up display, adaptive dampers, valved exhaust. It's got carbon fiber roof. It's got carbon fiber inlays on the interior. The M badge on the backrest of the seats actually lights up. One interesting thing about this car, it doesn't actually, that I can see, have a coolant temperature gauge. It has an oil temp gauge, which for performance driving is actually important as well. You can definitely tell when you're just cruising in it, the oil temperature does stay lower in the 170 range, and then as you get on it, the turbo's working harder, the temperature does climb a little bit. But there's not a coolant gauge, which, unless the car's overheating, generally most cars' coolant temperature gauges don't really move. They just kind of go to center and stay there. I feel like this engine is also a tale of two exhaust notes. On cold starts, it sounds like a tractor, and I really don't enjoy it. But when it's up to temperature and you've got it under load, you're accelerating, you know, 50%, 3/4 throttle from 3 to 5,000 RPMs. It sounds awesome. You hear the turbo spooling. It sounds better than some engines, a lot of engines. But at the same time, it doesn't sound like the old naturally aspirated Vanos straight sixes from the E46 and prior. Visibility is good. The side window for the rear seat actually allows you to see out of it, so you don't have huge blind spots. It's a really usable car day to day. This is my father-in-law's car, and before he got this, he had a G37 coupe, much like my wife's, except rear-wheel drive and manual transmission. And when he wanted to replace it, he couldn't get another Infiniti because they didn't make a manual anymore. And so he was looking at this and a Cayman of all things. At the time, it would have been a 91 generation. But after driving them and the M2, he decided that the M2 and the Cayman are a bit too small for him. Now granted, he's about an inch or so taller than me, so not much taller, but he has a larger frame. He's right around the 210 range. And for him, those two cars are too small, and this one is just right. And I would say he's more like the average buyer of this vehicle as far as stature. The Cayman definitely suits someone like me much better. While tall people can't fit in it, it is a smaller car, very noticeably smaller. And that's exactly why I prefer that car. But this is arguably much more usable. As I said, it's got the rear seat, it's got a trunk, which is actually pretty big. But that's what you get when you move to a larger car. One thing this car does have, especially being black, it's got some road presence. This thing looks mean. I mean, it can blend in because it's not overly styled for the most part. If you know what it is, you can appreciate it. But while it kind of blends in, it also has presence. It's kind of a interesting dichotomy. Interestingly about this car, compared to the E46 I drove about 15 years ago, almost 20 years ago, the clutch is actually really light. When I first drove this, I expected the clutch to be heavy, because that one was, but this one, you can tell this almost 3 generations between this car and that car, the E46. And you can tell it's become a little bit more refined over the years. At the end of the day, while I can appreciate this car for its abilities and its high limitations, and it's just a sheer brute, it'd be great on the Autobahn. It's not quite the car for me. This is a competitor to the RS5 from Audi and this C63 AMG from Mercedes. And I've never driven the C63, but if you want a manual, the RS5 is not an option for you unless you go back older than this car. And I would probably drive this, or prefer to drive this over an RS5, just because of the driver involvement. It's rear-wheel drive, manual transmission, the engine sounds better. I would drive this over an RS5, or own this, I should say. It's actually, now that I'm thinking about it some more, kind of a tough question. If I was commuting in the vehicle, I would definitely go with the RS5 because I much prefer the seats in that car, and the seating position fits me much better. It's also all-wheel drive, so arguably it's a better all-season car, especially with the right tires. But the dynamics on this are better because it's rear-wheel drive. I think I would prefer the engine and transmission out of this car, with the seats and the interior of the RS5. So if I could mix the two, you have the M4 running gear, the RS5 interior. But you can't do that. This car's throttle pedal is addictive. You just want to put your foot in it every time you have a chance. Definitely good at being able to throttle adjust the attitude of the car. You can go from understeer, a little bit of understeer, to add a little bit of throttle, and it neutralizes itself. And if you add some more throttle, you get some oversteer. So it's definitely, it'll play with you in that sense. The RS5, because of the design of the drivetrain, you know, you have the inherent weight over the front end. That just pushes. Your mid corner, you get some understeer. If you give it some throttle, it's just going to push some more and understeer some more. This thing, because it's rear-wheel drive, you do get that benefit of being able to adjust the attitude of the car mid corner, and it's really rewarding if you do it right. Thanks again for watching. Please like the video so YouTube can help other people find this video as well, who might also be interested in it. And subscribe so you see all my latest content. I'll have more coming on the Cayman, more coming on the Infinity, and if you like it, I'll have more coming on this M4 as well. Again, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.